We are not showing her face. We are not going to call her by her real name. We are going to call her Kim, and we are going to talk to Kim, and we're going to talk about why we are protecting her privacy in just a second. But before we get to that point, we're going to start with the positive quote of the day, as we always do. All right, this one is by Ronald Reagan, and he said, "We can't help everyone, but everyone can help someone." And Kim, you have two twin boys who you adopted, and you definitely not only helped these kids, but you have then, as a result, helped others because of everything that you've learned as a mother to these twin boys who are not biologically yours, but now you are 100% their mother because you have raised them since birth. So tell us why we are not showing you and naming you your real name, and we're protecting your, privacy right now.
Well, I just feel like this is a tender story that belongs to my twins, and it's not my story to tell. So I'm not going to choose to give markers, but the story is the story. So I can share that so that you can learn through me what I learned on this journey.
And you have such an incredible journey. So take us back to the very beginning. Your twins are now older. Of course, they're adult age. But you at first had decided to be a foster parent,
Yes.
and you never actually fostered. You just went straight into adoption.
Well, we did foster. So my husband and I experienced infertility for years and years, and we had what I call our miracle son after years of infertility and years of failed adoptions, 4 failed adoptions, had 1 child. And then Jack was our little miracle. And Jack was 9, and as a family, we were at a Stephen Curtis Chapman concert. It was a family fest, and I can't explain it. I don't know if you're familiar with Stephen, but he has a beautiful ministry around giving funds to families that feel called to adoption but can't afford it. And so there was this song, The Fingerprints of God, and it was just a powerful day for me. And this is the only time I ever experienced this, but I just had this overwhelming feeling that the Holy Spirit was talking to me through Stephen.
Mm.
And I got in the car and I said, Jim, I think that the Holy Spirit is like talking through Stephen and that we're supposed to possibly adopt children from another country. And my dear husband said, I heard no such message. Let's never speak of this again. And honestly, God just kept putting this on my heart. Every time I prayed, it kind of got stronger. And so in seriousness, I said, honey, I really think we need to either pray that God takes this off my heart or puts it on yours. And our son was 9 at the time, and this was something we kind of prayed about together. And 3 months into this, at 3 a.m., my husband sat up in bed and said, I don't even want to admit this, but God is putting on my heart that we're supposed to do foster care.
Oh my
I said,
gosh.
okay. So we signed up to get certified to do foster care, which is a 10-week program.
It's
It
intense.
is like 8 hours a day. And our son was always an old soul from the time that he came out of the womb. And he came to this and was like an adult, like in this process. So that being said, when we finished, we had signed up. I was 40, my husband 46 at this time. And although we had wanted more children, we felt like, okay, well, that boat has sailed. We're really too old to parent. But we had decided to sign up for the section of foster care that was older children that had reunification plans where parents were very good people, but they needed a little extra love and support. And they got a pause to work on themselves. And then the reunification would happen. And we felt like our hearts will be able to handle this because we're not trying to parent. So that is how we began. And it was funny because when we got our license, my husband said, wouldn't it be fun if we got a baby? He loves babies more than any man I've ever met. And I said, dude, we're not getting babies. This is for the infertile couples hoping to adopt. And we kind of laughed about it. And then the next week, he was out of town. And when you're doing foster care, they make it very clear you need to be very solid on who and what you're feeling able to accept without pausing when you get that call. So they said, "Hey, we know you didn't sign up to foster babies, but we have these very medically fragile micro preemies that are in the NICU, and they're going home on apnea monitors, and they're going to need physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech therapy, and we cannot find a family comfortable with their physical care. And we see here that you're a pediatric nurse. Would you consider this?" And I could hear my husband saying, "Wouldn't it be cool if we got a baby?" And I thought, "I guess 2 would be cooler." But in seriousness, I thought, "Okay, this is kind of a bizarre path that we've been sort of called onto that wasn't really entirely our plan." So I thought, "Let's just put this in God's hands." And that's what we did.
Wow.
So 4 days later, there were 2 4-pound preemies who had feeding disorders and ate every half hour and needed all of these therapies. They started immediately and were on apnea monitors that, as a nurse, I had happily said, "Oh, here's, the reset buttons," and teaching someone to do that and living through it where you get false leads when a baby falls asleep. It was like the the deepest level of sleep deprivation
Deprivation,
imaginable.
which is a form of war torture. Just so we're all very clear, sleep deprivation is a form of war torture. So it is miserable. Keep going.
Now, normally, birth parents and foster parents do not meet. The social worker picks the children up, but because the babies were on apnea monitors, this was not possible. And so I met their beautiful birth mom, who I will just say is a really beautiful human. And I don't know how she even had the light in her that she did with what she had been through. Her story was she grew up in the most violent ghetto of a city, which I will not name, and her mom never sent her or her sisters to school. And wow, it's been a long time since I talked about this. And she started them on drugs when they were 10 and trafficked them in their own beds. So she was raped every day of her life. And then from the age of 10, and she had been physically abused before then, but was on no one's radar. And her mother died when she was 15, and violent pimps in the neighborhood took over her and her daughters. She was 40 when she gave birth to my twins. And, um, I my heart just broke hearing her story, and I learned that the plan was reunification at age 1, and DCFS knew this story, and I was like, "Are you kidding me?" I was just devastated. So against everybody's advice, Jim and I had the birth mom in our home regularly for that first year to love on her, to model for her what their therapy would look like. And I fell in love with her deeply because she was amazing. And then the day came, they were getting returned when they were 1. And the social worker showed us where they were going to go home to. And it was a hellhole trailer park that, I'm not exaggerating, there were bodies of people strung out in high with needles on the path leading up. There was brown water, there were cockroaches. It was, in my opinion, not habitable. And this was an aha moment for this white woman who grew up in a middle class but very privileged environment with and no awareness of what other citizens in poor parts of town were going through in our own country. Just a very um, little umbrella of happiness that I just didn't understand the suffering of others. And that was like horrifying and powerful.
Yeah, we're gonna keep talking about this, Kim, when we come back because I think it was your aha moment that changed not only you but helped you start changing the community around you, and that is just so powerful. Stay tuned, everyone. You are listening to the Jill Berlin Show on WSJS News Talk Sports for the Triad. We appreciate you.
Any circumstance.
Good morning. I'm Jill Berlin. You're listening to the Jill Berlin Show on WSJS News Talk Sports for the Triad. We are here listening to our guest, who we're calling her Kim. That is not her real name. We are protecting her privacy in addition to her family's privacy, because she adopted two twins when they were first born. They were in the NICU. No one really wanted to adopt them because they came with a lot of problems. They were addicted to drugs as infants, and they were going to need a lot of love, care, and support. And there was a lot of sleepless nights for Kim. And so she brought the mother into her home to kind of help foster a new relationship. But then what ended up happening, Kim, is you went to the home where the children were supposed to go. You saw it was a horrible living environment. And it also opened your eyes to a whole new world of existence that not everyone sees, that you sometimes it sounded like your bubble burst at that moment, and you saw that people are born and live in horrible environments and never taught what love is. And so tell me what happened. Take me back to that day of when you walked into that environment, and did you just say, no, I can't leave these kids here? Or
Well,
how did that
it was
how did that
actually my
work?
husband, when we got in the car, just started crying and said, we are either going to leave the country and become fugitives, or we're going to take a loan against our house and buy a house for all three of them and just be Aunt Trish and Uncle Jim and mentor the birth mom and just carry her through this and try to love on all three of them. And that is what we did.
Wow.
And, the part of your brain that controls impulses is severely damaged with crack. Someone that had a functional childhood has trouble getting unaddicted to crack. But this poor woman, by no choices of her own, was like in quicksand. And so she relapsed, and she had asked us if we could have the kids half of the time. And, for a functional mom, that's clearly not, when you get your children back from foster care. But we just thought, well, maybe she would be afraid she would relapse. And we just wanted to support her in any way we could. And she did well for a couple months. And then we would start coming to return the girls, and she'd just be gone for weeks and months. So we were calling the social worker, and we also learned how deeply flawed DCFS is. There are beautiful, wonderful people doing their best. There's just not enough resources and not enough people to do it properly. But we said, we're pretty sure she's relapsed, and we wanted them to come back in foster care. At this point, we had no legal rights. Birth mom had full legal custody, and we were no longer their foster parents. This was like an off the book situation. And they just said, Trish, if we took children from every home where people were using, there'd be nowhere to put all the children. And that really broke my heart. And so we just kept on keeping on. And then the birth mom started stealing from us and writing checks to herself. And, she had never had a checking account. And I said, honey, I know that you don't know these checks are coming back to us. And I know you've relapsed, and I'm not judging you. You are just a total victim. But you need to get into rehab, sign a consent with your therapist that she can let me know you're showing up, staying clean, and doing the program. My goal is not to send you to jail. That's not fair. You don't belong there. But you can't be a safe mom using. And she said, I don't understand why you don't think I can't be a safe mom just because I'm using. I would never traffic my daughters. And I said, I know you're such a better mom than your mom was, but you're just going to have to trust me on this. And she couldn't get clean. So we had to have her arrested. And that broke our hearts. And it took 6 years before we were able to adopt the girls. 6 years of going to a full security prison, because this poor woman had lots of things on her rap. But, guess what? When you are a prostitute and no one has ever taught you anything, you're going to do what you need to do to survive and get your high when you're addicted. And that journey, we met her family and community, and really realized there's all these people that end up in jail who are beautiful souls and never had a chance, and I think our society judges them without having a clue. I mean, there are literally schools in these neighborhoods that are called jail school to jail pipelines. 80% of the kids, if you are in this school, you're gonna end up in jail, and you can't tell me 80% of those kids are flawed. We're just really, in our country, letting our children and our citizens who are born into poverty down, and it's not okay, and it just really infuriates me.
Well, and I think what's amazing to me, Kim, is that the fact that you not only, took in these kids and raised them, you then ended up going a step further. You and your husband have had discipline classes and talk about gentle discipline, and you don't have to hit in order to discipline your child. You also helped start a nonprofit in northern Uganda. And so this not only affected you and and touched your heart, but you then did something. And that I think is so courageous and so honorable because so many people can gripe and complain, but to do is a whole different thing.
It really sounds honorable, but it's not. I think when you take an infant home from the hospital, you fall in love with them as if you gave birth, whether there's a legal tie or not. Your heart doesn't get that memo. And we did what any parent would do to keep their children safe. And when you have a window in for the first time to see this human, their mom, that was just suffering, and I could see the little girl that had been abused. It wasn't a huge stretch.
And she probably just kept on numbing herself in order to deal with that past pain. What tell me about the gentle discipline classes and kind of
So
that
her
nonprofit.
her extended family, they were very untrusting of me. They had only had negative interaction with white people, quite frankly. And they were like, "What is the deal with this crazy lady that's talking about that you can discipline the kids without hitting them?" And so I said, "Well, invite them to the house." And like 20 to 30 people started coming every Saturday. And I just taught them about behavior mod with and my daughters have a half daughter that was sadly raised by this broken woman, and she came to us and asked if we could help her, and she had 4 children who had been in and out of foster care 6 times, and I went to her apartment, and there was, like, no furniture.
Mm.
She the boys were drawing sexually explicit pictures because she was having booty calls in front of them, and,
Oh my
she
gosh.
we started going over there weekly. We, like, furnished her apartment and started doing the behavior mod with her. I mean, she was beating her boys, and it was bad, and she turned it around, and, I mean, we got like, it was just, like, incomprehensible, like, they had never seen toys, things that we just take for granted, and this isn't our country. This isn't like a third world.
It's in our own backyard.
Yeah, and so,
Well, Kim,
I
I
don't know.
I just
I don't
wanna
know what
tell
else to
you
say.
yeah, it's hard and it's horrible, but you can make a difference, and you have,
Well,
and
yeah.
I'm so grateful for all that you've
I
done.
like to live the starfish way, if you've ever heard that poem. The little girl throwing the starfish in on this shore, and we just help one person at a time. You can't do everything.
So true. Alright, I'm Jill Berlin. Stay tuned. And welcome back. I am Jill Berlin. You are listening to The Jill Berlin Show on WSJS News Talk Sports for the Triad. I am so glad to introduce my next guest, which is Michelle Bardsley, who has officially announced her candidacy for the NC House of Representatives in District 62, which, by the way, is in Guilford community. So, all right, Michelle, first of all, thank you for coming in. We appreciate you, and we're glad that you're here. And you have quite the background. You're an educator, you're a businesswoman, community leader. You've been involved in many things: Fellowship of Christian Athletes, the Affordable Housing Management, the Westover Church Worship Team. You were recently appointed to the North Carolina Department of Administration's Domestic Violence Commission. Tell us first and foremost, I'm going to ask you the number one question that every candidate gets, which is why? Why, Michelle, would you ever choose to run for office? My husband's in politics, so I get the odds and ends of what it takes to run for office and the time commitment and, the dedication. And I think that a lot of time people will look at politicians and they'll, have a negative assumption about them, or they'll, feel like they can just drill them. But at the end of the day, I feel like a lot of times it's leaders in our community who are trying to step up to make a difference and do the right thing. So why'd you decide to run for office?
I decided to run for office because of my heart to serve and solve problems and hopefully inspire people. In a world that has got so many issues and so many problems, it can be tough day to day, tough on families, tough on marriages, tough on employers. So I want to serve our state of North Carolina to solve problems, be inspiring, hopefully, as a leader. And honestly, I can't stand being called a politician. My husband and I had a conversation about that. I'm like, you've known me 31 years now. You've never called me that before. It's just because I'm running for office, you're calling me that. So leadership, you mentioned leadership. And I think that leadership is really lacking in so many areas. So I hope to provide some new ideas in our House of Representatives, come up with some great solutions to help families, businesses, and communities, and hopefully be inspiring and a role model for others, for younger people.
And I was going to say, I feel like, younger people, you've been involved in a lot of things that help children. Fellowship of Christian Athletes is the first thing that comes to mind. Tell me a little bit about that.
So FCA, their mission is to make disciples for Jesus Christ in the high schools and colleges, and their student-led club organization. They have meetings like once a week, typically. They're called huddles. Of course, it goes along with football, right?
Unintended.
Very much. And the target audience is athletes, although anyone can join FCA in the schools. And as an educator who taught in high school, who led FCA huddles, it really helps the kids with all the teenager things they go through, and young adults in college, growing in their faith as they're also growing and maturing is so helpful to them and making good decisions and helping to guide them through those times. I've had kids say, please pray for me for my test today. Or Miss Bardsley, my team isn't getting along, And so when we have these huddles, we bring in scripture, of course. The kids get to lead that huddle, and they also get to pray for each other. And it really creates a bond on those teams, and it really helps them out.
And my first guest that I just had, we were talking about how, so many kids are put in situations that they are, from a young age and almost really it's just not their fault. They just, they had bad parents and a bad rap and a bad start to life. And, I think that Fellowship of Christian Athletes and even sports really, it can be so uniting.
Absolutely.
And and that is something that I feel like Fellowship of Christian Athletes definitely does. Now, you said that you have an education background. Tell us about that.
So I've been teaching and now being a leader in education for 16 years. It wasn't my original career, which is interesting. I have a business finance degree from Old Dominion University. I just learned that they beat App. That was a surprising. But anyway, it was very surprising. Anyway, my original career was business, corporate, finance, accounting, and IT for 13 years. Then I stayed home as a mom, having 4 children for 7 years, and volunteered and did a ton of things like Girl Scouts and Vacation Bible School and all that. Room mom. And then I went back to work as an educator at Grimsley High School, teaching all the things I did in the corporate world. So Microsoft, management, accounting, finance, all
Things
those
that you can
career
actually
skills.
apply to life.
Exactly. And
Because there's so many things that are taught in
Yes.
school that you never use.
absolutely. And I help the kids realize, hey, what you're learning right now applies to you now, and it helps equip you for a potential career later. So in those years of teaching, my whole goal was to inspire kids and equip them for that next step. And it didn't matter what side of town they were from, what their backgrounds were, their income levels. When they came to Miss Bardsley's class, they always had an opportunity.
I love that.
And
My husband and I have always talked about just attitude and how, anything that happens to you in life, it's 90% how you go about it mentally. It would 10% is the event that happens to you. And
Right.
And so I've often thought about, gosh, there just needs to be a class on, positive mental attitude.
there you go. What do you do
I
with
mean,
those tough
truly.
times, right?
Yeah.
Life gives you lemons, you make lemonade. And that's that's part of my core. And I've been through some tough times as a child, as a teenager. And I've always had to pull myself up, press forward. And I've had some really great people around me, teachers included, coaches. I played soccer and I was a cheerleader and I ran track. People around me who were there during those tough times that just, gave me a few words to help me push through, but that personal perseverance through those tough times, and getting through that, it builds character.
It does.
It really does.
It's so true. So tell me a little bit about how how you plan on, utilizing all those skills and all that background, and then take that, forward to the house. Because there are definitely
Okay.
some things that need to be done, and there are definitely a lot of changes that need to be done, and it takes a strong person to make and want to make those changes.
Right. Well, thank you. First, it's important to know your community. So this district is Guilford County, and it covers some small towns like Summerfield, Oak Ridge, Stokesdale, Colfax, and northern Greensboro, and northwest High Point. So it's a really great variety from the small town to pieces of the big towns. I need to know what they want. So I'm going to be listening. I'm going to have a core group of people from each town that I will consult with. We'll have meetings. We'll discuss what is going on in the community. And those things are going to range from the economy to public safety, education, housing, and healthcare. Things that affect our day-to-day life, right? So, of course, we can't address all those things at once.
Yeah.
And I would guess that right now that the economy is probably one of the number one areas for most people. And education is very important. Education is critical to everything we do for our young people, and getting them ready to be responsible citizens in our community, helping them get ready for that next step when they leave high school. What do you do now when you become an adult? So I think the economy and education are going to be the top areas first to discuss and work on in the House. Of course, there's going to be over 100 representatives, and we're going to work as a team to figure out what policies, what bills need to go in, what laws we need to create. And that could change a lot. This position starts in January 2025. When I win next November, of course, I have to win the primary first in March. That's really important. But it starts in January of 2025. So, that's over 13 months away. I don't know what the hot issues are going to be in 13 months, but whatever it is, I'm going to be there to work, come up with solutions, and work as a team to help North Carolinians and help Guilford County people and businesses.
And I got to tell you, as a mother of 4 children, you know how to work.
Yes.
I
Yes.
have 4 kids.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
It's when you're outnumbered,
Yes, you're
you
outnumbered.
you learn a lot of skills.
You do. You learn delegation, checklists.
Yeah.
I called myself a good project manager at the house.
Yeah. I'm telling you.
Schedules, all those things.
It's so true. I feel like a mother of multiple children should always be the first candidate to run for office.
There
But
you go.
who am I to say?
Here we are,
Here-
right?
yeah.
You'll be next.
Yeah, I don't know about that. All right. You all are listening to the Jill Berlin Show. We so appreciate you listening. We're going to ask Michelle some more questions when we come back. Stay tuned.
Wake up, it's Triad Today with Jeffrey Griffin.
And welcome back. I'm Jill Berlin. You are listening to the Jill Berlin Show on WSJS News Talk Sports for the Triad. If you're new to the show, I'm your licensed health insurance broker, and it is open enrollment season to get your health insurance under 65 or over 65. So email me with your questions, Jill at rsvp65.com. We are here with Michelle Bardsley, who is running for the NC House of Representatives in District 62. That is a large area to cover, to talk to a lot of people, but I know if there's anyone who can do it, it's Michelle. All right. So Michelle, we were talking a little bit over the break about public safety and just equipping and training, all of our officers who keep us safe at night and help us sleep at night, quite frankly, to make us sure that we feel safe in our own home, in our own backyard. So tell us a little bit about that and what, you think that should be done or can do to make it our community more safe.
Right. Public safety obviously is really important to everyone. Your home, where you sleep at night, if you can lay your head down at night and feel safe in your home, that is just number one, right? Safety in our schools is critical. So as a prior teacher, that was always the number one. Hey guys, the first thing in here is safety. You got to be physically safe. and emotionally safe. I didn't tolerate any kids picking on kids in my classroom
Good.
ever.
Yeah, I appreciate
No bullies
that.
here. No
Yeah.
bullies allowed. So safety is important in our community, in our businesses. The theft rates are high right now in businesses, and that concerns me. Our police are understaffed everywhere, right? It's not just one town. It's just about every town you talk to needs excellent police officers to come in and help enforce the laws as well as make relationships with the community. And I think that's really important. I went to a town hall with our new city police chief last year and asked him personally, I said, would you please make a commitment to get into the schools and build relationships with the kids so they see you as a leader and someone they can trust when they
Right.
have a problem. I think that's really important. Their visibility with our youth, community outreach, and he is all for that. So I'm really excited about that. That's important. Training our police, of course, once we get the folks in, you got to train them. They have to have the equipment they need, resources to do their job, right? And
Right.
technology changes all the time. So you always have to have upgrades on technology and all
Right.
those important things to do your job. So I support our police. I support our first responders. I say you have a tougher job than an educator. That's what I say. So it's really important. So I'm going to be obviously pro police and working with our legislators to help create great bills for them and law for them to support them.
And talk a little bit about school choice.
Okay, so interesting facts. My own children attended Greensboro Academy. One of them went there 9 years the whole time. So that's charter school in Greensboro. It's one of the first charter schools. They had an excellent foundation, kindergarten through 8th grade. Then they went into the public high schools. I have 3 Grimsley graduate children and 1 Northern High School graduate. And that foundation of that classic education they got at the charter school really helped them moving into that 9th grade year. And it helps a lot of kids. I see a lot of kids leaving charter schools, going into the high schools, and they are performing really well academically. So I am a advocate for school choice, absolutely. And I actually work at a charter school. I'm an instructional coach at Revolution Academy in Summerfield. So I've taken all these years of, traditional public school, raising my children, now into a charter school, K-8, to help be a leader in that organization. So I'm a school choice advocate as well as vouchers. Each child has a different need. Families have different needs in their educational choices, and they need to place their children, find the right place for them to grow academically and personally and in character too.
Gosh, it's so
Character
important.
education is really important.
It really is. Okay. And then also just finally here. So you were just recently appointed to the North Carolina Department of Administration's Domestic Violence Commission.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about that and why you decided to do that.
Every community has those tough places that people don't really want to know necessarily or talk about. Domestic violence affects rich and poor. It affects everyone. And sometimes it's hidden often. And
It's
so
definitely not biased to social status.
Exactly. Yes. And so we have a domestic violence commission that works throughout the state, works with the communities, and there's a lot of support systems within those communities. So recently I met with Triad Family Services in Guilford County and learned about the services they offer. So everything from the moment something happens and the police are called, and then the separation of the offender away from the victim, being put in a jail cell overnight or whatever, maybe a night or two, and then coming alongside the people that are affected by this, right? And it's usually women. And so those services of, just being there for them, getting them in a safe place. Maybe there's children that need a safe place. There are shelters in some of our cities that they can go to. And then there's programs that help them leave an unhealthy relationship also and move on and start their own life. And a lot of times it's financially driven that they won't leave, right? That the victim won't leave because they don't have any money or nowhere to go. So there's services that help them in that process too. It's huge. And so when I met with the family services folks last 2 weeks ago, I learned that there's a really great relationship between our Cone Hospital, our police department, our services group for domestic violence, and they work together to help. It's not just one organization. So, of course, there's funding always that goes with that.
Right.
And we do have funding in our state budget that helps our communities throughout North Carolina. So I'm very interested because I'm a person of hope, and I want people to have a future and a hope, and I want solutions to help them get better.
All right. If people want to get involved and they want to know more about you, Michelle, where do they go to find out more information?
MichelleBardsley.com. And
That's
it's pretty simple.
Easy to do.
And I'm very thankful to be here today.
Oh, well, thank you. All right. We're going to end with our positive quote. We can't help everyone, but everyone can help someone. That was Ronald Reagan. And Michelle is definitely doing that. MichelleBardsley.com if you want to know more information. You've been listening to the Jill Berlin Show on WSJS News Talk Sports for the Triad. For Christian Snyder and Gray Brendel, I am Jill Berlin. Until next week. In fact, I don't even know what next week's going to handle because it's Thanksgiving. Anyway, we appreciate you listening. As always, the best part of my week is this part right here. Thanks for listening. I'm Jill Berlin.
Okay.